Hey, it's Sonia. Welcome back to my art YouTube channel. This is going to be a little bit of a mishmash video. I think I'm still coming back to getting in the habit of making videos as I do things again. And so it's kind of, I'm just looking over at because I'm editing the clips. It is basically a little bit about why I really like to pre-prepare papers ahead of time, like with colour and using up, if I've got a lot of gouache on my palette or plate, like how I like to prepare papers ahead of time. And also there's also a little bit of a segment, not the most succinct, but I think it's been on my mind for a while to make a video to try and be helpful about ways of, I guess, sort of saving money, so you don't feel, if you're wanting to loosen up. I think for myself, I definitely feel a lot freer and looser if I'm not precious with my art supplies or feel like I'm using very expensive materials. I mean, I'm not saying anything against that. I think it's good to, to feel an abundance and to also use good materials in art. But I think for some of us, and sometimes, obviously, if you don't want to spend a great deal, like you've got a budget, then I think there's also ways that you can make art and using sort of cheaper materials, and also recycling art materials. What's the word? Reuse, like bits of paper that you've already drawn and painted on. They can be used again. And I do find a great deal of satisfaction in that, so I do share a segment on that. And I think that's going to be it for this week. I'm still kind of like finding my way back in terms of making content and sharing again, and I'm gonna let myself have some leeway with that. It definitely feels you can easily get out of the habit or feel like a bit, I don't know, but quite honestly, a little bit awkward making videos. So we'll see. I am though feeling in many ways back creative. What is it, creative? I'm feeling much more in a creative mindset again, and I'm really enjoying getting back to my sketchbooks and just drawing and painting. And I feel it is a benefit in many ways for me. And I guess, I want to also, the only thing I have noticed, I think it's worth maybe sharing, is that it's easy, isn't it, when you do make changes and you're like, as I talked about with the slow art, and I'd made some changes, I was like, I'm going to keep things very simple and say no, not saying, is it saying no? Yeah, probably maybe saying no to some things to give myself more space. Then it's almost like you can feel like, then you notice there's these other opportunities, or there's other things and other stuff comes up, and before you know it, you've kind of like you can, if you're not careful, you're going to head towards just being over busy again. So I am going to take things in case someone else is as well. It's sort of summer, like take things slowly and try and just try and have low expectations. What's the word? Just a low pressure and sort of enjoy some chill art time. So hope you enjoyed the video and see you next time. Bye. Okay, just something I thought I'd share that I have been getting back into is if I get out a colour and I get really into it. So this is my another Anything Goes journal, and yesterday I was I just wanted to do some like loose flat floral shapes, and I used a background colour. I used a gouache, artesian gouache, and I squeezed quite a lot out of it. And then I was like, I'm just going to also, one of the things that has been very handy for me is to pre-prepare, what's the word, is it pre-prepare? I don't know, ahead of time, backgrounds using block colour, because then it's dry and you've got these pages that are ready to go. And can also be, if you're not in the mood for a blank page on a certain day, you can flick your sketchbook and you're like, here's a colour, and you can react to the colour, or it's just a way of getting going. And at the moment, especially when you're coming back after a break, I feel like sometimes you just need all these little incentives or inspirations. So I just, yesterday I went over, this is going to be another abstract altered sketchbook, so I was like, I covered up a page there, and then here I have what I like to do with these sort of loose floral type sketches. So is, yeah, sometimes I kind of like 2 different block colours. So what I will do now is come in and then pre-prepare. I'm just going to prepare this ahead of time for myself. But another colour here for like a sort of a table scene. You don't have to. I was also thinking yesterday, I was like, well, I could actually do some, like, before I go on top, do like a really intricate sort of tablecloth design. That might be quite a fun thing, but we'll see. Now I've got this masking tape, I'll probably do a block colour. So yeah, that was just a quick, just wanted to make this little segment as while I remember it, because it's on my mind. So yeah, it's just some, oh, and you can also, sometimes I also like with that green there, I just sort of made this, I don't know what this is going to be, to be honest with you. It could be collage material. I could go on top with, I mean, yeah, you could go anywhere. Sometimes having these bits of paper that aren't just blank has been super helpful. While I'm at my desk, I would do a quick video segment on my ideas and tips for saving money with supplies, reusing and recycling materials to get the most out of them. And I guess, you know, that's also a plus, like you can feel better getting really loose and free with your materials. So yeah, I just wanted to, because the reason is because I've just been working on a few things this afternoon, and I suddenly thought maybe I should just quickly share some of my ideas while they're in my mind. So the only thing is, I've just got one thing before I go into this as a bit of a, what's the word, not a disclaimer, but just that I do feel I should point out. And that is, I think for me, look, I do have a lot of supplies, and I think because I received as gifts. And the good thing about really good quality art supplies is they do last a long time, like, you know, Neocolor 2 crayons. And so I am, while I'm trying my best I'm trying to use what I have. I'm definitely not one of these people who's going to say I'm doing a no buy. I think that would just be in my head, and then it would just make me want to buy some more art supplies. But I'm just being, as I've talked about before, really conscientious about trying to use up what I have. And yeah, I don't like, you know, I want to get free with my art, but to get free with my art, I sometimes don't want the materials to have feel like I'm wasting them, or they've cost a ton of money. Personally, I might admit, I think everyone's different in different situations, but this is what works for me. And one of the things is, when I am doing, it depends what sort of art I'm doing. So I wanted to share this because this is a moleskin sketchbook, and I do have a few of these, and I tend to be like really precious over them. So this one is just kind of for gouache, I think I've shown it before, but gouache landscapes, which actually I should do some more of. And I tend to also use my good quality gouache or watercolour in them. So my Winsor & Newton, and I did, because they were on offer, get some last year, some Holbein gouache, and I love them. And yeah, they just work really well for this sort of landscape work for me. So yeah, and I also want to say something else I've mentioned before, but I want to mention again, is just care when you are, if you're like me and you've been brought up in, you know, households where, which is good, like for saving and being a bit more frugal, like people, you know, and she's saying that I do save my wedding china for best, but a lot, you know, my grandma was always this sort of saving things for best. So I never, knowing how much, you know, some of these more expensive tubes of paint cost, I have to be careful, because there's the tendency not to use it. But I found that after some I'd had for like 10 years or embarrassingly long, and then they do, if you're not careful, they do get hardened. There are ways, obviously, of cutting them open and reusing them, but even so, why not? The ideal is to use what you have and enjoy it. And So yeah, I am aware I do need to not just keep things for best. So yeah, however, I have two styles of, if you've seen my channel, you'll know that I do lots of different types of work. So yeah, I do keep some of my best supplies, for whatever reason that is, for more portraits and more realistic things. But I have, over the last few years, been getting into and I've been really enjoying loosening up and exploring abstracts. I love doing abstracts, and I've really been getting into sort of more sort of loose still life and loosening up with all subjects really, and even that sort of really going for that sort of primitive, naive look. Like, I don't know why I'm yearning for that. Maybe it's especially now with so much AI and so much like the whole perfection thing. It's almost like I want the anti of that, if that makes sense. The opposite, the rough, the whole. Well, AI probably will be able to do naive. I'm sure can do naive art, but I love the really sort of totally handmade, the texture that only comes with, is it animal when you say you do it on, well, yeah, when you do it by hand. So, money saving tips then, for loose work, for abstracts, for sort of more naive art, I really want to use like recycle stuff. I want it to use cheap supplies, because a lot of the time I'm going over and over things and they're not to be kept. For example, even though these boards are from old sketchbooks, I did make a video where I destroyed, I think I did, I don't think it's here on Patreon, pretty sure it's on YouTube, where I destroyed this sketchbook. This was a very cheap Tiger one. That had some drawings, a few drawings I kept from it, but other pages I just recycled in the end because the paper wasn't really good quality. And then I was like, well, I could get rid of these, the actual, what's it called, board. But actually, why not use it as a canvas board, as a painting board, as sort of, as something to draw on. And so I've just covered it today with a little bit of a cheaper acrylic. I do appreciate, actually, even these cheaper acrylics have gone up in price. But this has given me this sort of nice grey blue colour. And then I wanted to experiment, because I was like, what about gouache? Can gouache? Yeah, and there's some gouache on here, just basic artesia gouache. And then I remembered when I went away, I forgot to take all my art supplies. So my husband kindly stopped at Target and I got these gouaches, these really cheap ones that I never actually use. Why not try them? And so yeah, I just did an imaginary sort of landscape. I guess I was sort of like thinking maybe Wuthering, I don't know where I was going in my head with this, but the point is, it's simple. And the other thing I like is you can then stick it up, lean them up on your mantelpiece, in your studio, in your bedroom, and it's a nice little reminder to get painting. Maybe you'll be like, oh, I'm fed up with that now, let's cover it up and go on to the next piece. I mean, you could also use the back as well, I guess, if I put some clear gesso, because then you'd have the black. But if you're just experimenting and having fun, if you're not worried about it being archival, or you're not worried about selling it, and to be honest with you, for those who are, and I do appreciate, art might be a little side hustle business. I mean, if you're honest about selling it, saying it's on an old sketchbook and what you used, I think there is an artist who was using cardboard. Well, artists have used cardboard, and I don't know how they cover that, but then sold their work. I think as long as you're honest with it, then maybe people might buy. Sometimes when we're buying things, we're not expecting it always to necessarily last forever. So this has just allowed me, as I said, I don't know why, but my more bigger traditional canvases, I just feel a little bit more hesitant to use sometimes. I've also spoken about recycling, altering books. I love this as a project because at libraries, in Switzerland, I used to find people actually put stuff outside their houses. They still do here as well, and for free. And I think, I'm not on Facebook at all. I've never done Facebook, but I believe a friend said that they even have Facebook no buy groups and stuff. Yes, but generally, if you're walking around and I remember seeing, someone left some books and they put, and this was in Switzerland, for free. And I've got a really nice old and sort of dictionary that I'm a bit hesitant about using, But I was like, oh, you know, I assume otherwise these books would get pulped or be thrown away. So the fact that you can then recycle them and give them another life. Oh, the only thing is just be careful with, let's stick this down, with collage, because obviously then, well, I did use a good, maybe, you know what, that's quite fun. You've almost got a stenciled out shape. Anyway, I think these are all stuck down well otherwise. But, and I kind of like the fact also it's sort of making me stay to, it's giving me a border as well, because it's like I want to cover up the text, but then I have these borders. And and then I was playing around with, because then you could argue, well, one thing is perhaps don't use your expensive paint to cover up text, because otherwise you might as well buy yourself a blank notebook or something. I had a play with, you know how I found out like eyeshadow obviously has sort of you probably don't put years old eyeshadow on your skin. So I was like, what to do with the little powders? And so I mixed them in with clear gesso. So sometimes you can get a nice sparkly sort of, you know, you can use them to make a pigmented, is it paint? I don't know what you'd call it really, but it's a covering well, I guess it is a type of paint. And yeah, that's worked really well. I quite find that's quite fun. And then you could even use your little eyeshadow palettes if they've got that, because you know the little, when you empty out, where is it here? Hold on, like this one is really old. I don't think I should be using it on my, so I've so this you could then refill with use them as empty palettes for when you're squeezing out paints and things as well. So it's just an idea for recycling and reusing. And so yeah, this gives you, also with the clear gesso, you get a really fun texture. And I feel another change in me is, I don't think I ever really thought about texture before I started abstracts and loosening up. I think I was more about, you know, form and render and drawing correctly. But I guess a lot of the time with abstracts, and if you're keeping things simple, it's then about, yeah, sort of the contrast sometimes in materials. So that's another idea. And obviously I've spoken about, if you have any spare paint on your palette, reactivate it, use it up. Especially if you've got old bits of paper that otherwise would go in the recycling bin. Try maybe, for example, I'm trying to find, where did I put it? This one I had the green, I covered it up with green, and now I just sort of come back to it and make marks on it. And for example, I can use this as collage material for my altered books. So they just keep, or you could just keep going on top of it and layering and layering and layering. I'm even starting to keep I do have a couple of collage material boxes, and I know that you have to be careful because then you just end up hoarding stuff. But I do think there is so I'm strict to myself that I'm not going to be allowing myself to keep more than can be contained within those boxes. I've got to use it or get rid of it. But these little tiny bits, I think if you saw I did two small sketchbooks. One was a small abstract sketchbook, and I actually had great fun. Like, you can do tiny mini little collages. You know, just here I can show you. Oh yeah, and just to say, this is, say you don't even have sketchbooks to recycle. Okay, we've all generally can find cardboard, some old cardboard. This I just covered with, I think it's, what did I use? I think acrylic, a cheap acrylic paint, a matte acrylic. If you don't want to use acrylics because they're plastic, try gouache. Cheaper gouaches can actually cover things up quite nicely. But yeah, and I actually think I've done some, I don't think that's a bad drawing, a bad, what's the word, board to just play around. I mean, I feel it just allows you to get really playful because you're not conscious about using expensive or having actually, you don't have to go out therefore and buy all even these sort of more stickers or scrapbooking material. You can just make your own. Or also, if you've got kids, sometimes kids will, these were from an old, oh gosh, paper plane book, and the boys don't want them anymore. You know, they had pattern pages, so I've taken them. And then you could stick those down, you can draw. And this sort of stuff is also fine for then, once you've got a covering to draw on. So that's another idea. Oh, so when I find, sometimes you buy really cheap material, sometimes it's too cheap to even to have they fall apart as sketchbooks. But I do still keep these papers now, and then I cover them with the leftover paint, and then they become a place to, I may think, like, I sometimes find drawing from my head really hard. I'm like, oh, I have to have a reference. But I'm trying to get away from that and not discourage myself. So you can have it, I think there is a benefit to sometimes practicing copying from, you know, photos, from illustrations, from life. And when you do that, I sometimes think you do know more than you think you do in terms of getting a form of a flower down, or what the head of a poppy looks like, because it, you know, but doing it on cheaper paper, I think, gives me more confidence to draw from imagination than in my moleskin sketchbook, for example. And yeah, and this isn't great. I probably will destroy this and start again. But, you know, it was a way of experimenting. And I know hold on, is this the right one? Oh, here we go. This is when I've been sticking in that cut up sketchbook as well. And painting over, I've talked about, if you don't love a page in your sketchbook, it's your sketchbook, so if you don't want to waste that page, paint over it again, reuse that page. It's up to you. I know some people are like very strict about not altering. You should always keep your page and learn from it. That's fine, whatever. There's different sketchbooks for different things. A lot of my sketchbooks now, if I've gone off a page, I will look upon it as to give it a new lease of life, to paint over it with something else, but maybe let areas of the old drawings come through, and then just see where that takes me. And yeah, maybe put more emotions into it, like scribbled her eyes out there. I don't know what was going on for me that day. But I actually like layers now. This is layers and layers. Under here, I think I used up some acrylic. Then I did these sort of detailed drawings. I don't like these detailed drawings anymore, so I'm going to probably draw on top of this page like I did here. So just reusing work as well. Oh, just quickly. Yeah, this was with that eyeshadow. I mixed it up with clear gesso. And talking about, so as I said, sometimes I just get bored of drawing things in a too realistic fashion. I want to get really loose. So this is another recycled sketchbook and recycled book, or altered book. And so it's allowing me here. I love having these pages just want to show you, pre-covered. And actually what happens sometimes is because I dry them outside, they stick together. And then I like this, when I open them, they rip. And I get sort of this torn, I mean, it's just for me, it's just super exciting to work on this sort of surface. Does that make sense? I just feel I can really push my drawing in a way that I just don't think I would in an inexpensive sketchbook. So yeah, these were some books I found for like $2, and I mean, some people might say, oh, this is terrible, or this is sacrilege, but I just, if you want to get looser, and if you want to practice drawing in a style that isn't maybe, oh gosh, so this is stuck together, but look at that, it's fun to me. So yeah, just wanting to share a few ideas. Was there anything else for this segment that I wanted? I think I'll come back to money saving ideas, because I do have quite a few, but I can't think of anything. I'd say also yeah, if you also use if you've got a large quantity of paint, especially, I mean, I know people have stay wet palettes, so actually people are very good at conserving their paint, but personally I don't have a stay wet palette. I just use recycle plastic trays again and again, and I just try and use up my paints. Also, if I've got a nice colour, to make some actually I don't want to do this now, so it's going to rip off, isn't it? To make myself some, so, but it's my sketchbook, so I don't care if it's a little bit not perfect at all. Yeah, so you've got a nice background now to go and do some more. For me, that will be fun to play with some really loose floral still lifes. Yeah, now also buying things, if I can, talking about no buys, well, if I am going to buy stuff, I do like to wait. If there's a really good offer that is, and I know I like the supply and I'm going to use it, like these are teaser sketchbooks. I did get quite, when they're at the price that I think is really reasonable for them, I did buy them because, also because I think I can probably recycle these again and again. The paper's thick, so some of these, if I don't like them, I can paint over or add more to. Anything else? No, that'll be it for now. So that was my little segment on some money saving ideas.